Medieval Britain was a time marked by violence, superstition, and a brutal sense of justice. While kings and nobles lived in castles, most people lived under harsh conditions, both from nature and from the cruel laws of the time. Among the many punishments used to enforce order, some were so grotesque that they still make people feel uneasy today. One such punishment was known as being hanged, drawn, and quartered. It was a method so horrific that it became infamous across history for its sheer cruelty and spectacle. This gruesome form of punishment was reserved for one of the most serious crimes of the time, high treason. To betray the king or queen was not just considered a betrayal of a person, but an attack against the entire state. Because of this, the punishment had to reflect the seriousness of the offense, and it was deliberately designed to inflict the most extreme pain and humiliation possible. The process began with the condemned being tied to a wooden panel and dragged through the streets by a horse to the place of execution. This alone was painful and humiliating, as crowds would gather to jeer and throw things at the prisoner. But the real horror started after the journey ended. Once at the site, the person was hanged by the neck, but not to the point of death. Instead, they were cut down while still alive, gasping for breath and in unbearable pain. This partial hanging was only the beginning. The next step was drawing, which involved cutting open the prisoner's abdomen, often while they were still conscious. The executioner would pull out the intestines, and sometimes even burn them in front of the victim. But the punishment did not stop there. After the drawing, the person was beheaded, and then their body was cut into 4 parts. These quarters of the body were then sent to different parts of the kingdom and displayed in public to warn others against committing treason. The head, meanwhile, was often placed on a spike above London Bridge, a gruesome reminder to all who passed by. What made this punishment particularly terrifying was not only the pain, but the public nature of it. Executions were public events, and people would come to watch as if it were entertainment. Children, adults, nobles, and commoners alike stood in the crowd, witnessing the slow and bloody death of someone labeled a traitor. This acted as a powerful message from the monarchy. Disobedience would be met with the worst kind of suffering. One of the most well-known victims of this punishment was William Wallace, the Scottish warrior who resisted English rule. After his capture in 1305, he was taken to London and subjected to this punishment in front of a massive crowd. His death became a symbol of both English brutality and Scottish resistance. The use of such horrific punishment reflects the mindset of medieval justice, which was based less on rehabilitation and more on fear, pain, and shame. There was no room for mercy when it came to crimes against the crown. The body was not just punished, it was destroyed in a way that made it impossible to forget. It was both a physical and symbolic act, meant to erase the criminal and frighten others into obedience. Eventually, the punishment of being hanged, drawn, and quartered was abolished in the 19th century. As ideas about justice evolved, more humane methods replaced the medieval ones, and public executions faded away. Still, the stories of these punishments remain a chilling reminder of how brutal the past could be. Looking back, it is shocking to imagine the suffering people endured in the name of justice. The idea that such acts were once considered normal reflects how far society has come in terms of human rights and the value of life. Yet, the memory of such punishments continues to live on in books, films, and historical accounts, keeping the horrors of medieval justice from being forgotten. While the Middle Ages were full of many violent acts, the punishment of being hanged, drawn, and quartered stands out for its unmatched cruelty. It is a dark chapter in history that reminds us just how deeply fear was used as a tool of control, and how important it is to continue fighting for justice that respects human dignity.